I was going to, with respect to witnesses, I was going to inquire, how many more witnesses do you
I
have?
believe we have 4, Your Honor.
Okay.
And
All right, and go ahead. With respect
We
to-
prepared basically a PowerPoint presentation that shows the photos we're seeking to introduce versus the photos we're not, and the cropping and relative cropping. So I'd like to just go ahead and show that to Your Honor now.
Please, go ahead. Although we have to examine the only justify
I can put it on
all
here.
the manner of death. That's all you need to know, but it's your case.
And some of these in this PowerPoint, Your Honor, are crime scene photos that obviously are not going to be the medical examiner. I don't know if some of them have been addressed and some of them I'm not sure if we're.
We need to see more crime scene photos.
I just learned that we are not going to seek to put any more in, but I just wanted to make sure.
All right.
You know, because this is a slideshow, there is a printout that General George has
I'm not gonna
provided.
do that,
Needs
it's
to
just show.
record. It may be necessary, maybe to mark these and make these the exhibit as well. So if you just scroll
And
through
they have
photos, it's not
numbers,
clear
and they
on
have
record which
different
photographs I may be objecting to.
That's why they're numbered, and that's why we have the hard copy, so we can kind of
Sure.
mark on here
Sure.
what the ruling is on each one. See this screen in your shot? Can we tell it?
Your Honor, we would just ask that the pictures not be published on the media of these
Right.
particular sensitive photographs.
Right, at this juncture, correct.
So, Your Honor, the first few are.
I think that's the one we already have in evidence. Well, we're not gonna ask you those here.
This first one, Your Honor, shows a fresh abrasion on the victim's foot, which is relevant to show the theory, at least that it's consistent with that she struck her foot on the metal bed rail that next to the bed where the mattress and box spring are pushed. And I would like to ask Dr. Lee if this is consistent with an injury from that. I don't think it's very prejudicial just based on it doesn't show anything other than just her ankle.
Mr. Hopkins.
Your Honor, for the record, this is number 8. There's no objection to that.
All right. Yeah, I think this is the first one that the others we've seen before.
Correct.
All right, go ahead.
Another photo of a different injury on the same, a different fresh abrasion on the same area that we'd like to seek to introduce. Number 9.
No objection to that.
All right.
We are not gonna ask to do this next one. No, we're not.
This one we're not seeking to use number 10. Number 11 is relevant because it shows the linear mark that is the right angle mark after it's been cleaned, so that it's there's a couple shots that we want to show that to the jury to show that it's not from the crime scene photo, that it's not just blood, that that linear mark is there. And it also shows the injury to her ear and the contusions behind her ear. In one of our injuries, Your Honor, is subgaleal hemorrhages, which is obviously it's blood underneath, on top of the skull, underneath the scalp. But we're not going to show, underneath the scalp, obviously.
Okay, let's deal with this photo right here. Mr. Hopkins.
Your Honor, there's a series of photographs that the state is getting ready to show. I'm not sure how many of these are the ones we try to introduce, but I would submit that this one and the following one show the same injury. This is unfairly prejudicial to you both. The state can scroll forward to the next one. There are 2 photographs here that are very similar.
Let me see the next one.
I think the first photograph shows that injury to the ear as well as that linear mark which the state is referring.
What we're looking at now is number 12. The only difference is, I agree, it shows the right angle mark and it shows some of the ligature marks, which is obviously important since the cause of death is strangulation. The only difference is it doesn't show this injury to the top of the ear. And since there was blood on the victim's earbuds and her headphones were attached to her iPad, we're obviously going to be arguing that she had that earphones on or near her. She was listening to them, and that the blood came from her ear onto those earphones. And that's why we want to show that contusion to her ear.
You're going to argue that she had earphones on?
Well, that at least that it's consistent with that She had the blood on her earbuds. And then she has the contusion, the impact injury to her ear, blood in her ear.
You can argue that without showing the photograph. The second one, I'm not gonna allow. This one, not gonna allow.
Or that one.
This is the third one.
That would be the third one.
Which is the third one?
The number, apparently the numbers have ran out. We started at 8, 9, which there was no objection. 10 is not going to be used. That gets us to 11, which is this one.
Yeah, keep going.
This would be number 11, and number 12 is the one that I submitted.
Right, that's the one I've
Hold on.
excluded.
Excluded number 11.
Right?
Number 12, I think.
What's number 12?
This one
Oh, that's,
was excluded.
that, wait a minute.
You already excluded.
That is 11, and then the next one would be 12. And that's the one the courts will
Okay.
excluded.
12,
12, yes.
right.
Your Honor, did you exclude 11 and 12?
No,
Okay.
So 11 is allowed.
So 11 you are allowed.
yes.
This, Your Honor, for record number 13, shows the petechia and the pattern injury to the victim's face, and Dr. Lee will testify this could be consistent with a shoe tread on her face, and also that the petechia on the ear is. We're going to see several photos of petechia, which are the evidence that he uses, along with the ligature marks, to conclude that it's strangulation. But not just that it's a certain type of strangulation, which is venous occlusion, that shows that the blood some blood was going up but not coming out, and then depriving her brain of oxygen, which causes the petechia because of the buildup of pressure. So that's the purpose for this photo.
In your honor, this photograph, I object to this one. I think this pattern is shown in a number of photographs already, but this could be cropped in such a way that the top of the face, including the eyebrow, eyeball, nose, lips, and the rest of the body, which is not relevant to that assertion, could be shown. I think there may be some other photographs that has a more close-up of that as well, but I know there's been at least one scene photograph that has that close-up in it already.
Let me see the next one first, before I rule on this one.
This-
Okay, what's your reason here?
Your Honor, this one's showing a different injury. She has periorbital bruising, which is contusions to both of her eyes, and that she has a lot of blood. And if we go to the next photo, we'll show you what we're definitely not seeking to reduce. And that is all of the significant hemorrhaging in her eyes, which is consistent with the strangulation and the trauma to the eye. So that's the reason for showing number 14, to go back, which kind of shows it, but obviously not in as prejudicial a way, is showing the actual hemorrhaging. But you can see the bruise around the eye, the orbital area.
I will allow this particular one. The next one with the eye open, I will not allow. That one will not be allowed, or that one will not be allowed. And again, the purpose of bringing the medical examiner is to testify as to the cause of death and manner of death. I think that'll be made very clear by his testimony, showing numerous photographs as to the cause of death. It just does not add anything to his testimony.
No?
Your Honor, this photo, which is, it's a little hard to see on the printed out version, but it's number 17, shows, so 17 is this version, but not cropped. This is 18 is the cropped version, which shows the petechia on her lip and on her cheek and nose. And again, the petechia is the evidence that Dr. Lee relies on for strangulation.
Again, Your Honor, we've seen petechia in other photographs already. It's duplicitous, it's unfairly prejudicial, and it, as the court has pointed out, the standard is, can he adequately testify to that without this photograph? I submit that he can.
It also shows, Your Honor, the contusions to her mouth. And we've sought, of course, to crop out. If you look at the last photo, we've sought to crop out her eyes, try to make this as non-prejudicial as possible.
Nothing about that the medical examiner can't use in his own words. He's a medical doctor, he can describe those, and again, reference the ones that the court has already allowed to show that he exists.
I agree. to see this, that particular one. Or that. Or that. Or that.
Your Honor, we're getting to a part here now that it is relevant, it's extremely relevant in this case being a strangulation case. There's a few photos that we want to introduce that show the ligature marks around her neck and that they go around her neck, around both sides. And it's relevant to show the extent of the ligature marks, the amount of pressure and force that was used, especially as it relates to premeditation and intent.
I mean, actually, it goes without saying. If someone is strangled, it shows intent and premeditation. You don't do this accidentally.
There's going to be no argument that this was an accident, Your Honor. It's not going to be an issue.
Well, it's not a question of was it an accident or whether or not. It's a question of was there premeditation or, you know, we still have the right to argue to the jury that they shouldn't come back on, for example, second-degree murder, that the extent of force that is required and used for these ligature marks shows that deliberation and process and intent to strangle her. So, I mean, obviously I agree with Your Honor, but
you can argue that strangulation alone demonstrates deliberation, premeditation, intent. It does by its very nature.
And again, the medical examiner will be testifying as to cause and manner of death and will state that that is sufficient force to cause her death. It's not going to be saying she fell. I would move to exclude these for the same reason.
I've already said this was not going to be allowed. That's not going to be allowed. We don't need all of it.
this one showing abrasions and contusions to the upper arm and the upper breast has been cropped. These are injuries we'd like the jury to see that Dr. Lee's going to testify about.
Again, Your Honor, these are no doubt marked on his diagram, and he can testify to the location and manner of those.
It's also relevant, Your Honor, to the location of DNA on her left arm.
There has already been testimony with respect to the DNA. Showing all of these photographs, nothing but demonstrating prejudice. We don't need to see all of these photographs. I previously stated, we know what he's going to testify to. At least we believe we know what he's going to testify to. And we don't necessarily need photographs to demonstrate what his testimony is going to be. I just find these photographs just too much for jury.
Your Honor, in this photograph, and I understand what the court's saying, in this photograph, it's a pattern injury that we want to show the jury to show it's consistent with a pattern injury on her face. This one doesn't show anything but just a piece of her shoulder, so I think the prejudicial...
You can show that. I don't have a problem with something like that.
And I actually did.
And this one, Your Honor, shows the bruising and contusions and then some more pattern injury to her left arm. And again, the injuries to her face and ear we've already spoken about.
Objection for the same reason, Your Honor. No reason each one describe those, and this one showing the face is particularly gruesome. We would ask that
It is.
This one obviously doesn't show the face, but does show some of those petechia that are on her back, an injury to her shoulder.
If there's anything particularly unique about those injuries, the medical examiner cannot describe adequately.
I will allow this particular one.
That is number 40 for the record.
I'll allow that one.
That was number 41.
40 and 41.
This is, Your Honor, for the record, 42. It's a view of two linear abrasions to the victim's leg. This one showing the victim's sprained ankle, Your Honor, that has been testified about.
But you got torturability.
I don't know that that's relevant, Your Honor. if that's-
It's not relevant.
Whether she could escape or not.
Your Honor, our argument is it goes towards her ability to move and to be able to escape, which is,
And you can argue that without showing that she had a sprained ankle. There's been testimony that she had a sprained ankle. And you can argue that.
Your Honor, this is another shot of petechia that is the evidence of strangulation, which I think it will be hard for the jury to picture what petechia are without seeing some examples of them. This is on the back, so I think it's far less prejudicial than petechia on her eyes and lips and inside her mouth.
Your Honor, I think petechia has been shown a number of photographs that have been allowed in. And again, I don't know that there's any reason that the medical examiner cannot describe that adequately to the jury without showing this nearly full back shot.
And the other thing, Your Honor, just is it shows how extensive the petechia is. It's going to be hard for that to be described, because you can see that she has petechia all over her back.
Well, I don't know that it will be difficult to describe. I mean, I'm sure Dr. Lee can describe that.
She was lying on top of things.
Just to add to the state's argument, it also goes to show, one of the key things in this case that she's lying on top of, with the lividity that she's lying on top of these different, the cloth and blankets and clothes and stuff. You can see the impressions on her back.
The mother described the condition in which she was found in these crime scene photographs taken already.
Couldn't see what was underneath.
There was. How many other photographs do you have? This is what, 40 what?
This is 45, Your Honor.
And how many more do you have?
We're almost through. This, what General Anderson has shown here is the number 48, which is an extremely cropped close-up version of her ear, which shows an injury to the left ear.
Again, Your Honor, same thing, why can't that be described as she had?
It can be described.
And that would be it.
And other than that, this would be the last one, Your Honor.
That one says not seeking to use this photo.
No, sorry.
What?
Yeah.
It's the last two, Your Honor, and just, I didn't know if we got a ruling on the back one, but just because I know you wanted to see the other ones, the last two that we're seeking to introduce, some of these are just to show you what it's been cropped from, but it's the injury to the front and then the back of the left ear.
I understand, but I think Dr. Lee is well qualified to testify as to the nature of her injuries. I believe he is well qualified to do that.
Okay. So just
8, 11, 14, 40, 41, 42.
for the record, Your Honor, the photos that the court ruled on are 8, 11, that could be introduced, are 8, 11, 14, 40, 41, and 42. And we will submit a complete copy of this presentation as an exhibit under seal for appellate purposes.
Absolutely fine.
We'd also like to introduce a complete copy of all of the medical examiner photos as a sealed exhibit for appellate purposes for
Sure.
comparison.
That's no problem with that.
So those, I have those exhibits here.